piece of me?
Do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk?
Good morning, Vietnam! I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
I feel the need for speed.
I wish I knew how to quit you.
Love means never having to say you're sorry.
You do? You'll shoot your eye out, kid.
What's up, film fans? Welcome to episode 280, and welcome to a new episode of the Cine-Men Movie Podcast. Thank you for listening. You are in for a new episode. Zach, what's up?
Hey, we're here. We're here to talk about a new movie. What about you? Not new, but a new conversation. How about that?
Yeah, new conversation. And actually, this is a first-time watch for you, right?
Yes, first time watch for Edward Scissorhands, and so it's gonna be a fun conversation. So
Good. Well, I'm your host Juan. Like I said, I'm joined with Zach, and you're listening to a new episode of the Cine-Men Movie Podcast. Last week, Zach, we had a fun conversation about Good Will Hunting.
Yeah.
So Good Will Hunting was last week. You can check that out anywhere you listen to podcasts. You can also watch on demand anytime right here on Sawa Productions YouTube channel. You can hit us up on the socials, facebook.com/The Cine-Men Movie Podcast. The Instagram is all one word, The Cine-Men Movie Podcast. X is at Cinemen405. And then the email is at Cinemen4 at CINEMEN cinemen921@gmail.com. I recently just was able to get back into emails because it's been a hell of a week. So I was locked out of emails for a few days. So I will get to some emails probably starting next week, and we can do some during the Good Person episode or the first episode of February. So, but other than that, Zach, how's your week been?
I'll be honest, it's a little choppy, but we're on trying to get to smooth waters. So it's just one of those things where a little inside baseball. I'm maybe applying for a new job, and it's just kind of hectic right now. So it's just one of those. It's just one of those you're juggling type weeks. What about you, man?
Same thing. We had a frozen, icy tundra this past weekend, and it was not fun. What about you? Did you have a snow day, or did you have to go out in it?
Let's see, was that Monday, right?
Monday, yeah.
Yeah, we had to go in. Yep.
Oof.
Unfortunately, in the medical business, it doesn't.
What time did you leave your house?
Dude, I left we didn't have to go until 10, but I went and had left early because people are idiots. So I left about 7. Yeah. So it took me about an hour to get to work just with all the ice. So
it was pretty bad. But what did spawn this past week with some news that we'll talk about is the Oscar nominations.
Yes.
Surprised, discouraged, positive, negative. What do you think?
You want to go over the list, or do you want to just maybe hit like the main 4 awards?
We can talk about some of the stuff that happened.
I think the biggest thing is snub-wise, no Margot Robbie and no Greta Gerwig for Barbie, and people are outraged by it, which I kind of agree. Margot Robbie was excellent in that role, and it took Greta Gerwig all her talent to get that movie off the ground. So I'm a little bummed she didn't get an Oscar nomination for Best Director. What do you think? Leo didn't get nominated for Killers of the Flower Moon, which I'm here and there on.
I can't remember. Did De Niro get nominated?
Yeah, he got nominated for Best Supporting Actor. Yeah.
That would probably be my guess why.
Yeah.
Leo didn't get nominated. I bet he doesn't show up to the Oscars.
I don't know. I think he'll support. I think he'll support Marty, and he's done a lot of promotion with Lily Gladstone, who got nominated for Best Actress. So I don't know, man. It's going to be interesting. I think I'll just list them real quick. The Best Picture nominees are American Fiction, Anatomy of a Fall, Barbie, The Holdovers, Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, Oppenheimer, Past Lives, Poor Things, and The Zone of Interest.
And Oppenheimer got nominated for 13.
Yeah, Oppenheimer was the big the runaway with the nominations, which probably means they're not going to win nothing the way that works. I think Nolan has it in for Best Director. I think Robert Downey Jr. is going to have it for Best Supporting Actor. The Best Actor nominations: Bradley Cooper for Maestro, Coleman Domingo for Rustin, Paul Giamatti for The Holdovers, Cillian Murphy for Oppenheimer, and Jeffrey Wright for American Fiction. I think it's going to come down to either Cillian Murphy or Paul Giamatti, which are both. I thought both performances were really good. So
I think Oppenheimer has to win Best Picture. I think it has to sweep the Oscars. I think this is the year that the Oscars can finally look and be like, oh, here we have a movie that's nominated this many times, but it also dominated the box office.
And it's actually a good movie.
Yeah. No offense to Anatomy of a Fall, but I heard it was an overrated 2.5 hour courtroom drama that has good performances, but it's probably never going to be on anybody else's rewatchability list.
Yeah.
I've heard some good things about American Fiction, but again, it's one of those things that it feels like it just had to be nominated because of maybe who starred in it.
The Zone of Interest, which is A24, it's not a Holocaust movie, but it's about a family that lives right next to a concentration camp. I've heard technically it's a very beautiful looking movie, but again, is that something that's going to be watched ever? You know, Poor Things is obviously another one that I still need to see that one, but I don't know.
I heard the dark horse that's starting to win a lot of awards after the Golden Globes is Past Lives.
Which, I mean, we're going to talk about Past Lives here in a couple weeks, so I mean, we'll see. I mean, just to preview my thoughts, I thought that was a very good movie that's worthy of a Best Picture nomination. So,
and let's look at this. I found this stat that I thought was pretty good. Only 11 movies have received 13 Oscar nominations, and that's Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, Shakespeare in Love. Somebody was high when they nominated that for 13 awards. Chicago, From Here to Eternity, Forrest Gump, The Shape of Water, Mary Poppins, The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, Gone with the Wind, and Oppenheimer.
And 3 or 4 of those movies out of that list won Best Picture.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. It's going to be interesting. I think I will say I'm pretty adamant that I think this is Christopher Nolan's year finally to win Best Director. And the only thing I'm looking at this list, and I agree with you. I think Oppenheimer is the front runner, but I could see Killers of the Flower Moon still getting some momentum. I don't think Poor Things will win. The only thing I could see it outdoing it is Killers. So I don't know what your thoughts are about that, but
it's going to be interesting. I know that. Speaking of interesting, though, we are going to talk about some recent watches. Zach, do you have anything interesting you want to get off your list to maybe recommend anybody?
Yeah, I watched the next 2 episodes that we're going to be talking about, or next 2 movies we're going to be talking about. A Good Person next week, and then the week after Casablanca. I did the season finale of Reacher. I thought it was a really good season. I think season 3 will come out sometime this year. It's already been greenlit and everything. And The Bear started season 2. Damn. I'm about halfway through. The last episode I saw was Marcus going over to Copenhagen to cook with Will Poulter. Excellent episode. So
yep. I think that's my favorite episode of this Bear season 2.
I've heard it gets better, so I'm excited about it. So I definitely check out The Bear. Check out Casablanca, which is on Max, and I think A Good Person is streaming somewhere. So, what about you?
The Bear season 2. Just when you thought season 1 couldn't get any better, you're blown, right?
Man,
yeah,
so good.
I have a short list this week. I finally finished my Planet of the Apes franchise frenzy. It was a pretty fun rewatch. Um, I finally watched The Holdovers, Zach. I thought it was a good movie. Um,
Did I hype it up too much, or was it like appropriate?
no, it was appropriate. I think the three main characters did really really well. Uh, I had a question though because I didn't look it up, but that's not Paul Giamatti's real lazy eye, right?
No, I think this is real lazy eye.
I never thought he had a lazy eye.
I don't know. I'll have to might have to watch the special features and see if there's a thing about the lazy eye.
I rewatched To Kill a Mockingbird, and then I started Monarch. I watched season 1 or episode 1 like way back in November. I finally started picking it up again, and it's not bad. I like how I just finally got this that Wyatt Russell plays Kurt Russell back in the 50s.
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty cool.
Yep.
If I had to recommend anything, The Holdovers is on Peacock. Check out Apple TV Plus for Monarch. And then Edward Scissorhands, I believe, is on Hulu and Max, right?
I know it's on Max. That's how I watched it. So
Yeah. So I think that should be fun. But we're getting in. I can't believe we're one episode away from ending January.
dude,
I feel like January just started.
this is how the year is gonna go. Just prepare yourself.
So, but our top 5 this week, we're talking our top 5 favorite movies that we're looking forward to for the year 2024. It should be pretty fun. I think we're going to rapid fire through this top 5 and kind of just go from there. This was kind of a hard list to put together, so I hope you guys enjoy this top 5. Top 5 movies we're looking forward to for the year 2024. I'll go through my just 2 honorable mentions. The Fall Guy, Ryan Gosling,
Yeah.
and Twisters.
Mm.
I didn't realize that the director of Twisters is the same director of Minari.
Yeah, which
So I feel like the cinematography for this movie is going to be phenomenal. So
yeah,
what about
I
you? Do
agree.
you have any honorable mentions?
Yeah, I got 4. Horizon, an American Saga, the Kevin Costner movie that he left Yellowstone to go do. It's like actually a 2-part film. I think the first part comes out in June and the second part comes out in August. The Bike Riders, the biker gang movie with Austin Butler looks pretty good. This should be in my top 5, but Deadpool 3, there's just a part of my brain thinks that's not coming out this year. I know Ryan Reynolds just came out today and said that they wrapped filming, so I mean, we'll see. And my official honorable mention is Ballerina, the John Wick spinoff with Ana de Armas.
Ugh,
That looks, I don't know, dude. It's set in between chapter 3 and 4, so we'll see.
more spin-offs.
Yeah, because that's all we can do anymore is spinoffs and prequels and remakes.
I'll go through my 5 real quick. If you want to talk about any of them, we can. Number 5, the new Ghostbusters movie. Number 4, Beetlejuice 2.
Speaking of Tim Burton.
Yeah. Number 3, A24's Civil War.
Dude, that looks so good.
Yeah.
That looks incredible.
Number 2, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. And then number 1 is, hopefully no surprise, Joker Part 2, which I just saw the trailer for today.
Yep. My 5, number 5, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. This should be higher, but because Matt Reeves is not involved in this, I'm a little anxious. It's from the director of the Maze Runner film, so we'll see.
Rise to me is the best Planet of the Apes movie, and Matt Reeves
He didn't do that one.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, that's true. Number 4, Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. I think Fury Road Fury, I've really gotten to like Furio since I saw it. On a Taylor Joy looks freaking badass in this, so
I'm not a
and
big fan of Helmsworth being in it.
Hemsworth. I think that character will fit in that universe. I don't know what exactly his role is, but we'll find out. Number 3, no surprise, Twisters. Love the original. We'll see. I'm glad they finally came out and said this is actually a spiritual sequel. It's not like a direct sequel, which I kind of appreciate. So
So
we
when
don't
you
have
say
to.
when you say spiritual though, you still mean same universe, just doesn't tie into the first one.
Yeah. So I don't know if they'll address Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt and all that, but
As long as they just use the word the extreme, we'll
we're
be good.
good. We're good as long as we get to do that. Number 2, Godzilla times Kong, the New Empire. Anytime there's a Godzilla movie, it's going to be in my list. And number 1, Dune Part 2, which comes out here in about a month and a week. So I'm very anxious to see how that turns out. So
See, I was excited for Godzilla times Kong, but when they put math into the title, I don't want to do math.
what if the third movie is like Godzilla divided by Kong? What are we gonna do then?
I need help. Who's gonna help me buy the movie ticket? That's interesting. Top 5 different movies. Obviously, there's still a whole bunch that we want to get to and probably put in that list. But I mean,
Yeah.
hell, we only have an hour to talk about Edward Scissorhands.
Yeah. And I was gonna put Ghostbusters, Joker Part 2, Alien. There's a new Alien movie coming out this year, Romulus. So yeah.
This is like the year of like the sequels and part 2s, and
Yeah.
it's insane.
Man,
Did you see Wednesday is getting a physical media release?
I did. Yeah. So what did you did you already pre-order it?
No. It looks interesting. But speaking of the man Tim Burton, today we're talking about Edward Scissorhands, which it's incredible to me that this movie turns 34 this year. Had a release date December 7th, 1990, with a budget of $20 million. It grossed a little over $86 million at the box office, with a 7.9 on IMDb, 89% on Rotten Tomatoes. The Metascore is 74%. The solitary life of an artificial man who was incompletely constructed and has scissors for hands is unpended when he is taken in by a suburban family, starring Johnny Depp, Winona Ryder, Diane West, Anthony Michael Hall, Kathy Baker. You also have the legendary Vincent Price in there, who plays the inventor. Alan Arkin, written and directed by Tim Burton. Music by Danny Elfman. Man, this was your first time watch. You didn't get to check this out in the theaters. You went into it blind. Hopefully, what'd you think about it right after the movie was over?
When credits hit, I liked it. I I think there is very much a sentimental feel about this movie. Um, from what I understand, Tim Burton wrote it because he felt like an outsider, and this was kind of like the caricature of Edward Scissorhands is very much him in real life. I mean, hell, he has the same haircut as Edward Scissorhands.
Not to mention, I think the guy is obsessed with Frankenstein a little bit.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think and that's the thing. I don't think anyone really talks about this. Is that this is just a really weird Tim Burton version of Frankenstein, which I appreciated.
And I think we'll get some hate mail, or you might even want to take off the boxing gloves with this comment. But I think if this is his version of a Frankenstein movie, obviously he did Frankenweenie, the short movie before this. But like, if he wanted to compare this to Frankenstein and this was his masterpiece of a Frankenstein movie, like, this to me blows the 30s Frankenstein movie out of the water.
Hey,
Like,
listen, we will not.
just sitting there and watching this again, and with the music, the love story. Yeah, Frankenstein has the creator, the inventor, and it's the monster. But like, you can kind of picture Edward almost in the same thing.
Mhm.
You know, the outsiders kind of look at him like he could be the monster. He doesn't obviously kill a little girl in this movie like the monster did in Frankenstein. But like I think Tim Burton's weird version spinoff of a Frankenstein story is unmatched. And a lot of
Yeah.
people talk about Tim Burton's masterpiece maybe being The Help of Nightmare Before Christmas, or I would even probably say Batman is up there too. But like to me, after just watching and digging into this movie, I really do think this is his gold standard as far as what he does as far as movies go.
Yeah. I would definitely agree with that. I think, this film, even if I didn't know if I didn't know nothing about film at all, I would this is so like the production design, the thematic gothic material of this movie is so Tim Burton. I mean, it's kind of like I could easily pinpoint that without even knowing who Tim Burton was, to be honest. Um, the the production design, like how the film kind of opens and it's that steady cam over like the little miniature of the town. I thought was really well done. It fits his type of style as a filmmaker. And when we get to the actual lair or castle or decrepit building of like where Edward lived until Peg, the mother, kind of finds him. It's very much in that wheelhouse of, like you said, like Frankenstein, where it's like the decrepit old mansion and like how where he lives when he's not, being sewn together or bolted together.
So going into this movie as a fresh watch, not knowing, I don't know if you did your research before watching it or you just wanted it all fresh at once. But what did you think? Did you know he was like a real person, or did you know he was just like you know,
I didn't expect him to be, according to what it says, he's a humanoid or like a. I don't want to use a Terminator. He's like a robot, like a weird version of a robot, and I didn't expect that at all. I really thought he was just like a.
a
Uh,
handicap?
no, not a handy. Like he was, and he acts like this. He's just kind of like this feral, timid creature that he doesn't
Like a
he doesn't know.
grasshopper?
Yeah, Hopper from A Bug's Life. Yeah. Uh, he doesn't know what he is, but he doesn't know how to conform with society. And I think that's the enjoyable part of this movie. And when he actually, the flip side, the way Tim Burton kind of flips the Frankenstein story on the head is he's very much accepted in the community until when they think when he thinks that they hurt Kim. And that really goes into like when the townspeople goes into like the decrepit old uh house on the hill. That's very much like the angry mob with their pitchforks at the end of Frankenstein. So
Yep. What'd you think of the sole purpose of the housewives and how they just start getting into everybody's business the moment Peg had Edward in the car? And
I like that aspect of it. I don't know if there's like a clear cut base, like is this set in the 60s, the 50s, but it felt very much like the 50s, the way like the color palette is on the town, how there is like all the different housewives getting together and gossiping about whatever's going on in the neighborhood. I
especially
like
the television sets that they were watching.
Yeah, they look very 50s, early 60s. So
But the only thing that kind of threw me off was, did they have that high tech of security room in the 50s and 60s? Like the scene where he breaks into Jim's dad's parents' house or Jim's parents' house.
well, maybe not that high tech, but I mean, I'm sure they could like maybe something in like a 50s military base. I mean, I could
But
probably see that.
but I think that's one of the joys of the movie is you don't know. Maybe there's no really set time limit, um, especially when you have some of the production factory scenes with Vincent Price. Speaking
Mhm.
of Vincent Price, um, again, we don't talk about Tim Burton a lot, but he has that obsession with the 50s, with the 60s, and obviously with like Vincent Price. I think Vincent Price was in Ed Wood with Johnny Depp as well.
um, I could look
So
that up, but I think Vincent Price is very much I'm surprised he didn't do more Tim Burton. Obviously, he didn't live very long after this.
I think this was his last movie, right?
This was his last big film. Yeah, he did another one in 1995, but this was his first his last big film. But I mean, just listen to some of these movies that he was in. He was in The Ten
He's
Commandments.
The Fly.
He's very much a horror genre. House of Wax, The Fly, House on Haunted Hill, Return of the Fly, The Tingler, The Last Man on Earth. So I mean, those films, that's already B horror movie legendary. And so the fact that Tim Burton was able to get him to play this little inventor character that's way out of the wheelhouse for those type of films, I think it fits for what the character of Edward Scissorhands is, essentially.
Did you like those flashback scenes of him reading to him, or him not being complete yet, or the cookie process? What about the
Or
scene where he's reading to him, and then he's like, let's do some poets,
yeah,
some poetry.
I think it humanizes Edward as that character, where he, clearly he's not a human at all. So you have to put in human characteristics in him for him to work. I think it works on a filmmaking standpoint and as a writing standpoint, where he was about to get real human hands, or I don't know, Jello hands or whatever, and the inventor dies, and he never gets that opportunity to have that.
Going through seeing some of the opening scenes, and just some of seeing Edward finally come out into the real world, looking at the stuffed animals, poking the hole in the waterbed, trying to put the clothes on. For this being an hour and 45-minute movie, it always flies by super fast for me. Did you have any lagging experiences as far as pacing?
No, and this might just be like a nitpick. I felt like, again, like you said, this movie is only an hour and 45 minutes, so they have to set it up. I feel like they set it up enough, but they don't. The love story between Kim and Edward, obviously she sees him as this thing that she doesn't really know how to respond to. She's afraid of him, essentially. Well, of course he's sleeping in her bed when she comes home that night. But I felt like there wasn't. I don't know. I know you've seen this more than me. So, do you think that there was enough setup for the love story, or do you think that there could have been just a little bit more tweaking to it?
No, I think it was perfect as far as getting the two characters involved. It's one of those things where, you know, you can tell she's obviously afraid, and she doesn't understand really what he is. But I think it's when he's at his most vulnerable, when Jim takes advantage of Edward. I think that's when she starts getting those feelings for him. And then she goes back and she's like, "You knew that was his house," and he's like, "Yeah, I knew that was his house, but I did it anyway because I did it for you." I think
Yeah.
that's the turntable. So it's the dialogue between the two where she finally starts realizing that, hey, he cares about me, he's falling for me, and then she kind of starts slowly falling for him as well. So she realizes that he's always been innocent, and then it's this world and these people that are messing with him. He's not messing with anybody.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. Probably the biggest dislike in the movie was the character of Jim. I thought Anthony Michael Hall was not very good in this, to be honest. I really thought at some point, I really thought he was going to say, "Evil dies tonight," at some point in the movie.
I like Anthony Michael Hall in this movie. I don't like him in anything else, and maybe the Breakfast Club, but I think the character is so despicable, and you despise and hate the character so much. But I think that's perfect. Perfect acting by Anthony Michael Hall to make that character just so sleazy, and so you just hate him from the get go.
Well, and it's Tim Burton messing with the audience, because obviously, everyone knows Anthony Michael Hall is the nerdy kid from the Breakfast Club. In this movie, he's the
Or Weird
douchey.
Science.
Yeah, he's the douchey jock in this movie.
Yeah, which I mean just shows you. And there's some instance where you see Anthony Michael Hall in just a T-shirt, and you're like, he still kind of looks like that. They make him seem a lot bigger than what he is.
Yeah, that's
Um,
true.
especially standing next to Johnny Depp. I think Johnny Depp is a little bit bigger than he is, but the way the camera angles are, it makes Anthony Michael Hall look like a bigger dumb jock, if you like you said.
Yeah. What do you think about the I like the integration of Edward where he's just like he's kind of cutting the hedges and like the bushes, and then he jumps to cutting like the dog's hair, and then he starts cutting like all the housewives' hair. Um I found it kind of
Cliche.
of like the housewife trying to hit on him, and her trying to like corner him in like the abandoned salon shop. It reminded me of the scene in another Tim Burton movie, Dark Shadows, when it was him, where it was Johnny Depp and Eva Green, and it was just like, okay, I kind of see like, I wonder if that was like the mirror scene of those two films.
And you're talking about Kathy Baker, the one who plays Joyce, who is the one who's obviously too hands-on with everybody, including the plumber.
Yeah.
What did you think of just the way Tim Burton like wrote in the funny sexuality between her and pretty much everybody else, especially with like her so-called experiences during the haircut?
Oh, yeah, when she's having like the orgasmic moment when he's cutting the hair. Yeah, it's it's so like it's so corny in a way, but in the same time, it's just like, yeah, that fits in this movie in a weird way.
I appreciated and liked, and I still think to this day, the dialogue for the father, played by Alan Arkin. I think he is probably, besides your main two characters, Bill, he's my favorite character in the whole movie. His dialogue towards everything Edward does, towards the son, towards the mom, he is just even though his comedy is so dry and he's a dry character, I just
Yeah.
find it funny. Even when they go down and he offers Edward lemonade, gets him sick and gets him drunk. Then he gets sick. He gets sick the next day because Joyce mentions lemonade.
I like how, and again, it goes back to the writing. I like how he has like the alcoholic lemonade, and he kind of has like he just shuts down. It's almost like a machine that just kind of shuts down a little bit. And I'm just like, and like you said, Alan Arkin just keeps on talking like, "You okay, son?" And Edward's like, "Rrrr." Yeah, it's the comedy in this really. I'm surprised it works as well as it does, given it's kind of like a gothic family drama, essentially, at the end of the day. Yeah, like I found myself laughing at points. So
What do you think of Bill? Did you like him as far as like the dad goes? He's kind of like the all American dad, like back in the day, what you would picture.
he's he's the Bryan Cranston character out of Malcolm in the Middle. Essentially, that's what he is. He's just kind of so not he's there, but he's just so non-present. It's just like, okay, dear, that's nice. He's just reading the paper.
It reminded me of his character. Wasn't he in Little Miss Sunshine?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's
Yeah.
so hard to think that how many good movies he was in as well. And I think we just lost him a few years ago.
He died last year, man. June of
Yeah.
last year. Wow. He was.
And then,
Yeah.
and then let's talk about the score. Danny Elfman and Tim Burton work almost in every movie together, but this has the same. And I know, like, it's got the same tones and vibes as all his other movies, but this one in particularly reminded me a lot of Batman Returns.
Well, it's funny that you should mention that because that was his next movie after he did Edward. He did this movie is sandwiched in between Batman and Batman Returns. So, in the movie he did before, I think the movie he did before Batman was Beetlejuice. So you can definitely tell the trickling effect of how this movie kind of came to be, and like the cinematography, definitely, obviously the Danny Elfman soundtrack, and pretty much the production design. It kind of, I think he took more influence from Beetlejuice than he did Batman in this, just because of the way the town is filmed. But Yeah, it's very interesting, his filmography.
Is it crazy that we're sitting here in 2024 talking about a movie that's 34 years old, about a director who did a movie like Beetlejuice in 1989, and then the same composer, the same director, and the same cinematographer is about to put out another movie next year, Beetlejuice 2. And when you sit there and just think of stuff like that all these years later, it's kind of fun, honestly.
Yeah. Let me just listen to these films real quick. I'm just gonna go through his filmography because he's only directed like, I don't know, 12, 13 movies, which is kind of, it doesn't make sense, but it does in a way. 1985, Pee Wee's Big Adventure, Beetlejuice, Batman, Edward Scissorhands, Batman Returns, Ed Wood, Mars Attacks, Sleepy Hollow, uh, your favorite Planet of the Apes movie, Big Fish, which I have never seen that, but
It's really
it
good.
it definitely looks like Tim Burton. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Corpse Bride, Sweeney Todd, which is, a lot of people say that's his masterpiece, is Sweeney
Watch
Todd.
it.
Alice in Wonderland, Dark Shadows, Frankenweenie, Big Eyes, Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, the Dumbo remake. And dude, that's his last feature film, was the Dumbo remake in 2019, and then he has Beetlejuice 2 this year.
Yeah.
And of course he worked on Wednesday in between that. So
He's produced a lot of movies, but yeah, as far as directing goes, that's why I'm like I don't think he gets the nod, like, he's a director of his time, and people's like, "Oh, Tim Burton did it. I have to go see it." But like when you look at his movies, he doesn't have a terrible Rotten Tomato score.
no.
If you look at one of them, and probably the worst one rating wise out of all of them is probably Planet of the Apes. But like he still has produced like watchable.
Movies, yeah.
Yeah.
Even something like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and Alice in Wonderland, they're not.
His remakes are almost just as good, if not better, than maybe the originals.
Yeah,
His live action version of Dumbo, to me, I was never a big Dumbo fan, but I think it's way better than the animated movie.
I
And I
think it
think
has more emotion to it. Yeah.
and his live action Disney movie is probably one of the best live action Disney movies that they've put out.
Yeah, I had Dumbo around here somewhere. I know I still have it. Animation wise, I mean, obviously, I think a lot of people say that even though he didn't really direct it, but a Nightmare Before Christmas is his like go to. Me personally, I like Frankenweenie. I always watch that during Halloween season. So,
Yeah, same here.
but going back to the movie, did you think it was necessary to have the town turn on Edward, or do you think, because I really enjoyed him interacting and like coming like not coming to terms, implementing himself amongst the townspeople to the point where he becomes like a town celebrity and he's on like a weird version of like the Johnny Carson show. Um, but yeah, do you think the turn was needed, or do you think if he was going to do Frankenstein, you have to do that?
I think you had to do it for the story he was trying to tell. I think the whole reason was not to point out the flaws of Edward, but the whole point of the movie was to point out the flaws of the townsmen.
Like they're unaccepting of him eventually.
Mm-hmm.
Like
at the end of the day, it's not Edward putting bad habits on the townsmen. It's the townsmen putting bad habits on Edward.
yeah, I agree with that. It's almost like we like you because of your abilities, but we don't like you because you're not. We don't like you because you're not human. You're different than us. You don't fit that mold of our neighborhood. So at that point, yeah, I agree with you. At that point, like we got to exercise you out from society.
There's rumors of a Johnny Depp cameo in Beetlejuice 2,
Mm-hmm.
with the whole Amber Heard thing finally behind him, and he's should be back, and just a matter of time, and probably till he's back in the limelight. Do you think it's necessary for Tim Burton to reach out and make Johnny Depp great again?
I think he
I almost feel like he owes, not maybe owes Johnny Depp something, but I feel like he should take it upon himself to, hey, let me be the first person to welcome him back into the limelight.
I think it would make sense. Just because, obviously, as many movies as they've done together, um, out of anybody, I think we talked about the directors that could probably save his career. I think Tim Burton is definitely top 3 just because of their work relationship. Um, and I know going into a Tim Burton Johnny Depp movie, I know I'm going to get something that's different. Maybe that's just because of his Tim Burton's directing style and choices. But at least I know, hey, Tim Burton is different from Tarantino. Tim Burton is different from Scorsese. Tim Burton's different from Spielberg. He has his own unique style, and of course, they put Hot Topic into business because we all appreciate that.
Speaking of Spielberg, I wanted to bring this up earlier, but I just now remembered it. What do you think about Jurassic World 4 in
Stop.
development? I'm
Stop.
serious. What do you think?
Stop. No, we get me hot on the collar today, Johnny, and I was doing pretty good.
It's green lit and it's in early development.
Well, as long as I don't have fucking locusts in it, we may be okay. So who knows? If you think Tim Burton will direct it,
No. They bring back T. Leon and William H. Macy.
Shameless is done, so he needs something to do.
It's like Fargo, but with dinosaurs this time.
Oh my god! Hey, listen, I would if they did like the Fargo TV show with Jurassic World, I'd be down for that.
Or they do Planet of the Apes, but with the dinosaurs. A velociraptor starts saying no, no.
Yeah, you joke. That's actually one of the best scenes in that movie. So, but yeah, I what do you think about the end? The idea that Kim is the one that kind of saves him and really kind of sets up the idea that he's dead, even though. Do you think you think she's abandoning him, or do you think it's protection?
It's protection. It's letting him be and live peacefully up there, telling the townsmen that he's dead, that Jim's dead, that they killed each other.
It
I think
evens out.
Yeah, I think the ending is perfect. I think once Jim is drunk and he's like, "Take me to her," and Edward saves um the boy, and he scratches Kevin,
yeah.
and he scratches him up, and then it just goes by so fast. Edward runs up there, and the ending is perfect, I think, and it almost looks like, hey, maybe she takes Edward's scissors and she kills Jim herself.
Yeah.
And then when he brings the gun up there, you're kind of like, whoa, now he's got the upper hand. What if Jim kills him? And I like how it plays out that they really are going to kill each other.
I kind of thought that Jim would accidentally kill Kim, and then it really does become a Frankenstein ending where the townspeople kind of burn the whole castle to the ground.
So you thought that was going to happen?
Yeah.
That's or it could have been a Tarantino ending and they all three kill each other.
Yeah, because I think you'd think every movie would be better if there was a Tarantino ending.
Edward Scissor Feet.
Oh, dude. Those scissors would be on his toes. That'd be his toes. Oh God.
Did you like the ending?
Yeah, I thought it was a sweet ending. I think, the idea that they play with the idea of snow, how the town has never had snow before, but it was him like cutting up the ice sculptures. I think the only problem with it was at the beginning, I could clearly tell that was Winona Ryder and a whole bunch of makeup and old prosthetics. So it wasn't a big shock by the end of the movie where it was just like, oh, I was there when that happened. So, but that, That's just me. So
I want to know how Edward got all those big blocks of ice up in the castle at the end of the movie. You think he Amazon Primed that?
that's the Burton cut. We'll never know. They'll never release the Burton cut of Edward Scissorhands. That is good. That is a good question because if you pay attention, there's no blocks of ice nowhere in that castle. So
No, that's just how good his AC is.
yeah. But overall, man, I for this to be a first time watch and this movie's damn near 35 years old, I enjoyed it. I mean, it definitely fits the mold of other Tim Burton movies, but still has its own distinct style. If that makes sense.
Yeah, of course. Is this a movie that you think you could easily watch again, or maybe one day add to your own collection?
Yeah, I would watch it again. I'd probably put some time in between my next watch, to be honest. I feel like my grade is gonna not reflect the way I'm talking about this movie, but that's just when the movie was over. I was like, yeah, that's where I stand on it, essentially.
Good. Well,
When was the first time you saw this? Because I don't think you said.
Ooh,
Were you a kid when you watched it originally?
I was probably 5 or 6 when I first saw this movie. It's one of those movies that would just come on like cable, and always just being indebted into watching Johnny Depp movies, or Batman Returns, Nightmare Before Christmas. So this was always one of those 5 of his that I owned, no matter what kind of physical media I was collecting. It's one of those must-haves. I'm surprised that there hasn't been some real nice anniversary edition, or I mean, hell, we're talking 34 years. But it is
Yeah.
it's a timeless. To me, it's a timeless movie. I could never get bored watching this movie.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you, just because of just like I don't know if I would call this a cult classic, but it definitely has its fans.
I think it's better than a cult classic, because a cult classic, at the term of a cult classic, is it didn't make a lot of money when it came out, and it wasn't well received when it came out. This movie from the get-go was loved by many, did great at the box office. So
Yeah.
I don't know if I would put it in a cult classic. It's definitely got its fans. It's got its cult following, if you want to say that.
Yeah. The newest version of it is the 25th anniversary that came out in 2015. And it's like you can get it on Amazon for like $10. But
I did this 10 years ago.
yeah, I agree with you. I'm shocked that they haven't done like maybe they'll do it for the 35th anniversary next year. Have like a 4K steelbook or something.
Yeah. Because the anniversary edition they put together for Sleepy Hollow was fantastic. So, let's do a favorite scene. Did you have a favorite scene or two from Edward Scissorhands?
Favorite scene for me, I really, and obviously the movie hinges on it, because if that doesn't work, then it's you don't have a good movie. I think the steady build up relationship between Kim and Edward, I thought worked really well. If I had to pick a scene per se, probably him cutting the dogs, and then and then he slowly starts cutting the people's hair, and it's just everyone's just kind of like, "Wow, you're amazing at this. How have you not slit no one's throat?" And he just kind of has that look of like, "I don't know. It works." What about
And
you?
to get the listeners, when Kim tells Edward to run with scissors in his hands, I just want to say we don't condone that at all.
Yeah.
And this isn't the prequel to Running with Scissors, the 2006 movie with Gwyneth Paltrow. This is not that. So.
Oh, dang it. Oh, you know what else was a good scene is the first time when Peg brings him to the house. And he's just kind of looking around, and he's not sure what everything is. He's just kind of like he's like lost in a certain way.
My 2-year-old had the same reaction whenever he first heard the phone ring.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or when she explains to him, he's a bowling champion. Bowling? Have you heard of bowling? Like, Jesus, lady, he's got scissors for hands. Do you think he knows what bowling is?
I like how there's always a close up of him trying to pick up like food or eating utensils or glasses, and it's just like, why are you giving him this? You know he can't pick that up.
He's essentially a toddler.
Yeah, really.
My favorite scene is the ethics conversation that Bill has with Edward, the right or wrong, or he talks to him about we don't have we have faith in getting new drywall or drapes, but our confidence in you is kind of slowly going down. Or the ethics talk after he robs or breaks into Jim's dad's house. Anytime you really get to see Alan Arkin play the dad, I think he steals all those scenes he's in. I like the ending. I like Jim's death. Uh, I like the scene where he just runs out of one of the housewives' house, and he's just standing at the edge of the street, and he says, "Kim," and then Jim picks her up and says, "She's right here waiting for you." Um,
Kind of a sweet moment, and it harkens back to like the Frankenstein thematic material of when he's just by himself. At this point, he's just kind of been pushed out of the neighborhood. He's just sitting on the driveway. The dog comes up and sits next to him, and he just sweetly kind of cuts the hair that's hanging in front of his eyes. It's just like, yeah, why do you want to be mean to him? He's just, he likes to cut hair.
I don't like the scene where Kevin takes him to show and tell.
Oh yeah, and he makes the little the thing out of the paper.
Yep. Vincent Price. We don't talk about him a lot. What would probably be your favorite Vincent Price scene?
Honestly, probably because it sets up who that character is the death scene. He's very excited to get him the actual hands for him, and he doesn't get that opportunity. And it's almost kind of like a tragic lost father situation. So yeah. What about you?
Going back to the scene where he's reading to him. First time watch, Zach. Break everybody's heart. What are you giving Edward Scissorhands for your first time watch?
Overall, good performances, great production design, the ability to take a classic like Frankenstein and just flip it on its head and do your own thing with it. First time watch, I had fun with it. It didn't drag, it didn't linger. I think if this movie was 2 hours, I think I would have had more problems with it. The fact that it's hour and 45, really hour and 36 minutes and you're in and out, I appreciate. So overall, I'm gonna give it a 7. I think it was a worthy watch. And to be honest, when you said you wanted to do this, I was like, ugh, no. But yeah, I had fun with it.
I noticed you did have that tone whenever I said Edward Scissorhands. You look like you're just like done with it already.
Yeah.
You know what? Out of everything we talked about, the cinematography, the score with Danny Elfman, the scenes, the characters, the actors, the one thing we really didn't talk that much about, other than his revival, was Johnny Depp. And I think Johnny Depp playing Edward and having the emotions and the clueless looks on his face and the sadness, the happiness at the end of the movie when Winona Ryder, Kim, looks at him and says that she loves him and cares for him, and he says goodbye, and you see his lip quivers, and then he has the watery eyes.
Yeah.
Like, dude, that does it for me. Like, that's how you can tell someone's doing good acting, and you have a performance that lives like forever. So to me, Edward Scissorhands gets 10. It's something I grew up on. I'll continue to watch it, pass it down, so on and so forth. But I think it's if you grew up in the early 90s and you've watched it all throughout the 90s, I think it's our version of Frankenstein. And I think he did the better job of the 1931s or 30s Frankenstein. So I think it's a 10, hands down. And
Nice.
I think it was a fun conversation. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Because if you hated on it, I was going to have to unplug the monitor and this episode probably would have got canceled. No. But it was fun.
This came out the same year as Crybaby.
Yeah.
So
Which Johnny Depp did not sing in that movie. He lip synced. And then
and
he turned around and sang in Sweeney Todd.
yeah, so I don't understand what was going on with there.
Yeah.
But Johnny, what do we got? What do we got for the audience next week?
Next week is Zach's pick. I got to watch this a few weeks ago, so the rewatch should be interesting. Next week we're gonna talk all about A Good Person. Florence Pugh, Morgan Freeman. Um, essentially, I thought I didn't know what to expect for this movie, but after watching it, I thought it was a very very good watch. So I'm going to be interested to see how the rewatchability lives up to it, especially with Morgan Freeman the last 10 years pretty much being um, just caught up in his own Morgan Freeman persona. I think this is probably one of the better performances he's had in quite some time. So
Yeah, I rewatched it Monday, and that was the first rewatch since the theater. Yeah, I'm excited to talk about it.
yeah, should be a fun conversation. So if you guys want to check it out, I believe it is streaming on.
I think it's on MGM Plus, which I didn't even know that was a thing. So let me look. Part of me thought it was on Hulu for a second, but let me look. Yeah, MGM Plus. That's where you can see it, and then you can rent it for like $5.99 on Apple TV or yeah.
Yeah. So go check it out. Go rent it. A Good Person. Florence Pugh and Morgan Freeman. We'll talk about it next week. We'll also talk Super Bowl next week. We'll find out who's in the big game. And then we'll mention February is just right around the corner. And episodes are moving to Sundays.
And
starting
actually,
next week.
oh sorry, Johnny. Actually, if you have Amazon Prime, you can watch it. You can watch A Good Person on there.
Oh, really? For free?
Yeah. Yep. If you have an Amazon Prime account.
Comes with a subscription. So
Yep.
go Amazon, go to Amazon Prime, check out A Good Person. And then February the
As
February the 4th, we will start streaming on Sundays live right here on Amy Swall Productions. So Sunday, February the 4th, we'll talk about Casablanca. Zach, this was also your pick, so you got two picks back to back.
Yep.
Why Casablanca right off the bat?
Right off the bat, it's one of my favorite movies of all time, and I'll get into it when we do the episode.
Sunday, February 11th. Listen to us right after the big game. We will review Past Lives, which is being nominated for Best Picture.
Yep.
Sunday, February 18th, we talked 2023 sci-fi creation, The Creator. And then Sunday, February 25th, Killers of the Flower Moon, which has Oscars all over it. Lily Gladstone being nominated for Best Actress. Scorsese nominated for Best Director, and the movie itself being nominated for Best Picture. And Robert De Niro, Best Supporting Actor. So February's packed. One more episode of January next week. We talk A Good Person on another new episode of the Cine-Men Movie Podcast. One thing Edward Scissorhand can't. You think he can still do deuces? Peace.
Maybe.